Okay, so we're going to finish up the tests for this machine box function. So the last time we were looking at things, we got to the point where we need to start mocking out the graphics context, which we've done. What we need to do now is start writing the tests to set the stroke color, the line width, etc. So let's start going through and doing that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to return the generate graphics context as a dependency. So at the moment our dependencies are only returning the mock's face box checker, but they also need to return a mock graphics context. So we use mock to create a graphics context based on our interface up here. So we've now got that here, so we can start to use this. Now what this is going to do is, oh, so we haven't generated this test yet, sorry. So we need to generate our mock for our drawable class. So we can do that using go generate. Okay, so it's getting an error message there. So handler 45. Let's have a look at this. So it's saying new graphics context can't be returned as type drawable because drawable return value instead is missing the method close. So we have a close method here, but what we need to check out is the signature of this close method the same? And so let's have a quick look at the documentation and go through to that close method. And where is that? Draw 2D. And close, close, close. Path close. Path builder. We're looking for the graphics context. So let's have a quick look in the doc, see if we can find draw 2D image. It's in that package. Let's have a look. Draw 2D, draw 2D image. Draw 2D img. All right, there's the documentation for this. New graphics context returns graphics context, and we're looking for close. Now close isn't on there because it's also pulling in, it's embedding this And close is just a straightforward method, so let's have a quick look. Handler.go 44. So new graphic context takes an image, image.draw. Oh, right. Because in our dependencies, we're not actually passing in. Oh, no, that's fine. 44. Can't use function. Oh, of course. Because we're, sorry, I'm returning drawable here. What we should be returning is a function drawable, which is graphics context creator. Right, okay, sorry. So now we can generate drawable, wrong type for method, fill stroke. Destination interface. So let's have a look at this, and we want fill stroke. That takes paths, draw 2D path, and returns nothing. So, not entirely certain why this is not working. Let's have a quick look through this. Right, oh, sorry. Because Facebox dependencies now requires this, so we need to just modify this. We're just going to return nil for the time being. So having issues with our fill stroke. So the signature for fill stroke is just this. which I think is what we have. Oh, why isn't this working? There's always something. So that's interesting. So the test works, but Go generate is failing. Can I use draw 2D image? I'm not sure why Go generate is having an issue with this, whereas nothing else seems to be having a problem. Let's try destination. We want to put this out as damn it. Package. Destination. And then interface. So mock can't use draw 2D image, new graphics context. Drawable. So not entirely. Let me see if I can just generate this interface. So we do have our interface there. And it genuinely doesn't seem to have too much of a problem with it. So I don't quite know why Mock was complaining about that. Never mind. So what we can do is we can go and, like we did with the other mock, let's copy the stub for this. And let's put that into our setup tests. And okay, so we've got this. We quite happily just get rid of the panics in here, because all we really want to do is check that we're calling the methods with the right parameters to make sure that we're putting the right data into them. And then what we need to do is go to, rather than return nil, we're going to return mocked drawable. But what we also need to do is we need to return our mocked drawable from the test as well. So this is going to be drawable mock. Okay, so now just quickly, I don't require that mock there. I don't require it there. I don't require it there either. Right. So now let's write that test, which is going to cover these lines here. So one of the things that we're going to have a problem with is that, oh, we just got a question. What is it I'm actually doing here? This is part 3 of a series where I've been looking at how you can do full test coverage around a serverless function. And a serverless function, which is typically just going to have a single function like this handle entry point here, which takes a request byte and string. Because there's no sort of complex struts or anything like that involved, just looking in a way that you can mock out the dependencies which are required by the handle method so that we can write full tests for that. And then eventually this is a way that you would use to take a TDD based approach to this. But we're not doing a TDD based approach. What we're doing is taking some existing code, looking at the problems in it, and then refactoring that so that the sort of the techniques are there to be able to do that on another function. So anyway, so we want to be able to test this, but in the previous sort of section we looked at these and the image decode and all sorts of stuff like that, and we kind of made an assumption that we would worry about this later, but to be honest, I think this is going to be too much of a problem right now. So it's probably worthwhile wrapping this up into a helper that we can, again, generate a mock for, and it'll just make our tests a lot easier. It'll also clean up the code because we can actually start moving this out into another class. So let's do that right now. So what we're going to need to do is we need a some sort of basic image function. We need something which is going to decode an image, and we need something which is going to allow us to encode an image. So to do that, let's again define an interface, and potentially we should be looking at this based on behavior, so we can create two interfaces, one which is encodable and one which is decodable, or we could just create a single interface which is an encodable, decodable, or something. The same way as you would have the writer, the closer, and then you've got read-write closers and things like that, and combinations of interfaces in Go. But let's just take a short route, and we're going to create encoder type image encoder decoder and encoder decoder, and I need to switch my alert notifications off because somebody seems to be hitting here quite a lot and it's getting on my nerves. So sorry, I should have done that earlier. So what sort of methods do we want on this? Well, there's two things that we want to get around with this. One is we want this image decode, but also we've got this block here because actually the new graphics context requires a draw image, not a standard image. So we need to convert it to an RGBA image. So what we can do is we can lump that up into one. We will call it encode. It's going to take an IO reader. So we're going to put, let's just call it image IO reader, and the output is going to be of type draw.image. Oops, and that isn't a function, sorry, that's an interface method. And then we're going to take a, sorry, got that the wrong way around, that's our decode. And then our encode is going to take an image and a buffer, so it's basically going to mirror PNG encode there. So that is going to be B, buffer, and it's going to be a draw.image. This is also going to return an error message in case it can't work. And I think that should be fine for now. So we've got our image encoder, decoder. We can add the implementation for that. So I'm going to add that into a new file. And I'm going to call it image encoder decoder.go. Just update that there. Okay. I think it's function. Yeah. So now we can write our concrete implementation for this. So we're going to write I'm just going to call it image implementation for the time being, because I genuinely can't think of anything better right now. What we need to do is we need to implement these methods. and then we can just cut and paste some of this code here. Okay. Sorry, image takes a reader, so and then I can also replace this with this. So we now have no test coverage around this, this block here, and we should probably write a test for this, which validates what it's doing, because it's going to have to be a slow running test, because we're going to have to actually do some more functional work to pass it through the image decoder and stuff like that. But I'm going to do that later, because that's just standard Golang testing. What I want to concentrate on is this sort of dependency pattern for our serverless function. Right, so we've now got that. So now what I can do is I need to, again, I'm going to generate a mock for our image decoder, encoder. I'm going to put a name on that. Image, whoops, encoder, decoder. Come on. Why is it complaining? 42. Because it's not error, it's error. And we need to replace. Okay, so we're going to just have to do a little bit of stuff here to add on to our dependencies. So we've got a graphics context creator. We're also going to have our image encoder, decoder. Oops, that needs to be a reference. I'm not 100% happy with the naming of this stuff, but we can go back and refactor that at a later date. So now what I can do is image encoder, decoder, decode, that is going to be Okay, course. Let's have a look. Just add some comments here. Decode and can I use B type bytes buffer as an IO writer? Let me just refactor some of this stuff. That should also take our image. Oh, sorry, it's not decode, it's encode. I've got this back to front. It is Monday. Oh, of course. That is my bad. Because we don't want a buffer, we want a reference to a buffer. Okay. So I'm having the same problem. As I was having before. Where mock is complaining about this fill stroke method. Actually, we need to move this. Just add it into here. Now everything appears to be fine now. I'm not getting any error messages. Change my dependencies here. Drawable. I got that the wrong way around. Damn it. And that's fine. That was expected because we are actually creating that. Why can't I go generate that? DG image. Why is my memory so bad? I mean, literally 30 seconds ago, I was generating this and I just cannot remember what I was doing. Is that because it's embedded? It's causing a problem with that mock? I don't really know, but we did generate it. I don't quite know why Mock's complaining about that, but anyway, it's there. So I just need to set this up. And this feels like there's a reasonable amount of work here, but it's that compromised. You want code that lasts a good length of time and you can trust it, or do you kind of just want to write something quickly and spend a lot of time debugging it? Personally, I quite like to follow this plan, so I'm happy that it takes a little bit of time. Also, there's a little bit of learning going on. I'm learning as I type this. I thought it'd be much more interesting to do that and like follow through the bugs and the problems as opposed to just working this out in advance and then just literally doing a walkthrough, which is just from an already working example. So we need image error. This is now going to return a I don't know what it's called, image encoder decoder mark. Okay, and again. Of course. So now we want to call facebox check, check with error, returns an error. And then the image decode error, so that's going to be we want to return image error format. And then here, I'm just going to return Oh, I've got that the wrong way around. Good God. All right. Okay, so now what we can actually do is let's just quickly run those tests because they should all pass still. We're getting an invalid memory dereference. What haven't we created? Machine box handler go 69. Mocked drawable. Oh, sorry, the handle method 69. The image decoder is blank, and that's probably because we're still returning nil here. We want to return our mocked image decoder. Cool. And our tests are still passing, which is good, even after all of that refactoring. All right, so now we're in a much better place. We've replaced another dependency, so now we can get on and write the final few tests, which is testing the stroke color and stuff like that. So we can say, we're going to say test sets up GC. So what I'm interested here is I want our graphics context, and I can write some assertions. So I'm going to say that I want to check that I'm setting the stroke color. So is dot equal 1, and then we can say len gc dot set stroke color calls should call if we want. We can also add a test here which is going to check that we've set the right parameter on that. I'm not so bothered about that at the moment, but we'll do that on when we start testing the drawing of the rectangle. Set fill color calls and we want to check line width. Run that test, and we're getting a message saying it should set the stroke color 107. You see, set stroke color calls. And that's because we're setting up our mock, which is going to return an error on that image, which means it's not going to actually pass through the code. Cool. So that's all passing. So the next test is we just want to check that it draws the rectangle. So we're going to say func test draws So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to return some faces, and otherwise it's not going to go into this block here. So I need to set up something in my check function. So if I go back up to my facebox check, at the moment I'm just returning nil here. I'm returning a faces error. So let me just put in here faces, and these are facebox.face. Again, I don't care about it here or here. I do care about it here though. So let's create our faces. And we can set those parameters in a second. Okay, so let's set up our example face. So we're going to put some dummy details in here. We're going to set the top to be, let's start with the left. The left to be 10, the top to be 20, the width is going to be 100, and the height is going to be 200. Oh, of course, it takes a rector, right? Cool. So now what we want to do is we're going to validate these methods here just to make sure that we are setting that up correctly. So is.equal, we're going to say 1, we're going to say len gc dot move to calls should have called move to. Then we're going to check the values. So it should have tested that we want the move to, we should have been setting the left and the top. So it should set faces dot left, and the value of that should be equal to gc dot move to calls, first instance of the call, the x value. Should have set x to 10. Again, we run that, and we're getting an error. So it's saying it should have set the x value to 10, and I'm getting an integer is not equal to a float. which is correct because we have an integer here and we're actually casting it. Let's run our test again. Cool. So that's our test there. We can then go through and set up all of these other ones. Again, it depends on how much effort we want to put into this as to sort of how we want to do this. We might determine that actually we're happy that as long as it calls line 2 4 times and move to once and close and fill stroke, then that's good enough. We don't want to check the explicit values, but again, it's how reliable do you want your code to be. You're not really writing these tests for today, you're writing them for tomorrow, next year, 3 years' time, who knows. But it's when you come back and modify this, you want to be able to modify your code and be confident that you're not going to have any unintended consequences by doing so. So that is entirely down to yourself on how much time you want to spend and how much risk you want to accept. I'm not going to fill in these now because I'm just going to put a note there. We can go through and complete the tests. But in essence, what we've done is we've looked at how we can take this block of code, how we can refactor out the dependencies, we can create some mocks and stubs that we can use into our test, and how we can write some tests. And in the last session, we were looking at the Go coverage. If we run Go coverage again on that, then you know we're pretty good. We've got some reasonably good coverage now, which is a lot better. And that's it. I'm going to finish off this code. I'll upload it to GitHub. And then what we can do on Thursday is we're going to have a look at how we can take this, and we'll try and figure out some approaches that we can write some functional tests, some integration tests, because we want to be able to check this code. We want to run it against a real Facebox API, and we want to be able we want that to happen outside of a Lambda environment, outside of the serverless environment, so that we can have that set up in our CI flow and have that sort of total quality around our builds, and then get more towards continuous integration, but ultimately continuous deployment. If we've got absolute confidence in our code and the way that it's working, we should be happy that it can flow from Git push right the way through into our production environments. And that's all for now, so thanks for watching, and we'll be back on Thursday with another session.